up, guys? Max here for Rev3 Games, and I'm at the Bethesda booth, which has so much cool stuff in it. I just got a chance to check out the Elder Scrolls Online, and I'm here to talk with Brian Wheeler, who is the head PvP designer for this amazing thing. Okay, so the Elder Scrolls Online is exactly what it sounds like, and at the same time, not at all what it sounds like. How is this an exciting thing for people who might just go, oh, why is that a thing?
Why is that new? Right. Well, Elder Scrolls Online gives us the first chance to play an Elder Scrolls game with your friends online. Like everybody always says, the games are great, they're wonderful games, but I want to play them with friends, and that's what Elder Scrolls Online is letting people do. Hop into an Elder Scrolls game with all the lore, all the things you love from previous Elder Scrolls games, and then we wrap it up and let you play it together with other friends.
And you can also make friends in this, too. It seems like that's a thing you're really putting emphasis on. They were talking a lot about sort of forcing people to work together. Can you elaborate on that?
There's lots of areas in the game where you'll run across other players and you can work with them. One of the great things for this is the PvP system, where you can run around solo, but it's always good to have somebody have your back. And there's going to be objectives for solo players to do, larger groups, and of course, those huge battles that we want people to do. In PvE, there's the bringing back of the public dungeons, so you can't necessarily run through it by yourself. It'll be really hard, but it's going to be better to run through it with friends.
Very cool. So you got that. There's one thing that really I thought was neat, and it's the way that when you're fighting stuff the enemies are like character builds, and they will not just gang up on you, they will actually team up against you. And so it encourages players to actually work together, and there's like an advantage to doing that.
One of the cool things about that too is the monsters act like players act in PvP. So if you see a mage, he'll back up and start shooting. If you see a fighter person, he'll run up and start fighting you in your face. So we're training you to not only learn how to play the game well in PvE, but as well in PvP. So they also come in groups, or one or two guys at a time, things that you'll encounter all over the game in both styles of the game, in PvE and PvP. So that whole monsters act the way players do is another one of those things we're trying to bring to the genre that is new.
So there's actually a layer of like kind of, you pay attention to what you're fighting, and there's also the combat, which is looking pretty good. Could you explain that a bit?
The cool thing about our combat is that we bring in the block, the crouch, and the sprint from Elder Scrolls Online. And what you get with that is different dynamics in combat, where if somebody's going to throw something at me, whether you're a caster class or a melee class, you can block it and everybody can sneak. And that's kind of a new thing in the MMO genre too, that everybody can run up and get a starting hit on somebody and feel like they were a sneaky type of character, or they can stand back and block. The other thing that's really cool is anybody can use any weapon. So if you want to be somebody in full plate armor and use a bow to shoot somebody, go right ahead and do that. That's a lot of fun too.
That's pretty cool. So it's not your pick a class, you're locked into it. This is kind of be free, explore, and that expands into the world itself too. How did the quests show this too? Can you explain that? Or?
We have a lot of quests in the game that are pretty much open and exploration. You run around. You may be in a town and you hear about something, a quest off in another area from an NPC. But as you're traveling to it, you're going to get distracted by things to do all along the route, just like any Elder Scrolls game out there. So when you're running around, you see something cool in the distance, there's going to be something there for you to do. So it's what we like to call this distractionary gameplay, where wherever you go, there's something to do.
I like that. That's what engages me. Is it's not just being locked into a linear approach and hitting a button repeatedly. This is also a very pretty game. It's not quite Skyrim per se, but that you also said that it's a forgiving game in terms of specs. This is coming to PC and Mac, and
we want as many people to play this game without having to worry about trying to make you get all kind of crazy PC upgrades and things like that.
Game you want people to play. That's insane. But it really seems like the social element here is being pushed, but not so much forced down people's throats. You've got the three different factions. How does that come into play in the story?
Well, in the story, every faction or alliance has their own unique storyline through it, but every character has their own heroic story to go through the game. The main story of the game is that Molag Bal has kind of taken your soul, and for you to be the hero, you need to recapture that back. And in doing so, you save the world. So while there's going to be that unifying theme across no matter which alliance you play, every alliance is going to have their own little story as well. So if you play for the Daggerfall Covenant, the experience you get there is going to be different than the experiences an Aldmeri player, as well as an Ebonheart player too.
Very cool. And I mean, how do you see this appealing to people coming from, I don't know, WoW or Guild Wars, compared to people coming from, Skyrim?
People that come into the game will feel pretty much right at home when they're running around the world in a familiar environment. We have zones from Skyrim, we have zones from Oblivion, and zones from Morrowind. So you're going to feel at home as a Elder Scrolls player in this game. And people coming from other MMOs out there, they're going to experience something that's brand new, which is part of that exploratory running around and finding things to do, the return of those public dungeons. And like you said, we're trying to encourage as much team play as possible in both PvE and PvP.
So you're in charge of PvP. Tell us about that.
So we're going to be releasing a lot of information about this over the course of the coming year, but I can give you the basics of the main PvP space is Cyrodiil, which is from Oblivion. And what we have players doing is running around in these huge 100 to 200, these huge battles that are going to be occurring around various structures of importance, as well as things that you're familiar with from running around in Oblivion. Those alien ruins or towns that you saw out there in Oblivion, they're going to be replicated in our game. They're going to be, 700 years before Oblivion, 1,000 years before Skyrim. So it's going to be, like you're going back in time, but in a very familiar environment. And all that fighting is very cool because there's stuff to do for small groups, stuff to do for big groups, and that huge fight that you saw, that's just the start of it. We're really trying to push that envelope of like tons and tons of people fighting each other at once.
Well, awesome. And this is coming out when?
2013.
And it's for?
PC and Mac.
And will there be a beta?
Yes, there will be beta. We'll go through a closed as well as open beta.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for talking.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out the rest of our content on this channel and on the DToy channel. I'm Max Scoville. I'll see you guys around.